This FedGov Today program is sponsored by ACT-IAC. On this edition of FedGov Today with Francis Rose, a new playbook to build your agency's workforce of the future, the AI transformation ahead for agency operations, and the Navy's data future according to CIO Jane Rathbun. Welcome to FedGov Today with Francis Rose. The Office of Personnel Management says its Workforce of the Future initiative, quote, lays the foundation for the federal government to be recognized as a model employer. The newest element of that initiative is the Workforce of the Future Playbook. Kim Holden is Principal Deputy Associate Director for Workforce Policy and Innovation at OPM. Kim, welcome. Thanks for coming on the program. I want to start with the concept of a playbook. What is behind the issuance of this information in this format for people to use in this way?
Great question. The purpose of this format is to make sure that we give agencies some digestible information, easy to use, instead of a memo. We give them real life examples of what their agency partners are doing so that they can learn from them and actually reach out and leverage what they've already done. We give them considerations for different measures that they can use to measure their success. And we also give them information with regard to the different types of plays that they're already aware of, but just putting it in a lighter touch. So that it's easily usable and easily implemented across the agency, and not just at the headquarters level, but also in the field and across the lowest levels of their organizations.
I count 12, if I counted correctly, plays in this playbook. How did you decide that these were the 12 that you wanted agencies to focus on for the Workforce of the Future initiative?
Well, for this particular playbook, we wanted to go back to the vision for the future of the workforce of the future, and that is to make sure that we have an agile workforce, that it's inclusive, and also using data-driven decisions.
The playbook says leaders should use appropriate plays to embrace change and ensure their organizations are ready, willing, and able to leverage the opportunities change provides. How does one know which the appropriate plays are? Is that an art? Is that a science? Is there a role for OPM to help agencies figure out the right plays for what they need, or is that up to the people on site that are dealing with the workforces each day?
Well, we like to have agencies think about what they need. Will OPM be there as an asset to be able to help them get through their decision making? Absolutely. But agencies, this is their opportunity to look at their vision, look at their current needs, their future needs, and then determine, do they need to shift their culture, make a change in how they make their decisions, to be able to determine which plays work for them. This is not a cookie cutter approach. Every agency will have to determine what works best for them. But the other thing is to make sure that they include the key stakeholders within their agencies, to include their chief human capital officers, their chief financial officers, and others within their C-suite that will help them make their decision and get on board with what we proposed in the playbook.
I wish I had time to talk about all the plays in the playbook, but a couple of them jumped out at me. One of them is pooled hiring.
Yes.
This is something that OPM and the agencies have been trying to get together for as long as I've been around, and probably longer.
Yes.
What happened this time that based on some of the examples that you have listed in the playbook here, it's happening now. It's working. What got the agencies and what got OPM over the finish line on this?
Well, it was creativity. We are focused on hiring experience. We actually have a hiring experience group that reports to me, and just pushing that out, making sure, and partnering with the Office of Management and Budget team as well, I think helped us get out of the gate. Making sure that every agency has a talent team, and those talent teams are on the ground, working with hiring managers, working with program areas to identify needs, but also the vision of creating a hiring experience where you're streamlining the approach. If I'm an applicant, I don't want to have to apply for 100 different agencies for 100 or 200 different opportunities, when I am happy about the fact that I can apply one time and there are many opportunities that I can be considered for. And even for the hiring manager on their side, we have one vacancy and they have the option of hiring many candidates. And so streamlining that, making it part of the culture, part of how we move forward, but also including additional tools that agencies can use, such as resume review training, making sure that we have training that we've just launched to help agencies build assessments, and also creating a talent portal on USA Jobs so that when we have pulled announcements, we have pulled certificates, hiring managers can go to that talent pool. They've already been assessed, already been certified, and make selections that way as well. So making it easy for agencies to get the talent that they need, more efficient, and frankly having an impact on reducing the time to hire.
How do you build something like that so it can scale once you see that it works? Because this is obviously working based on the examples here. We'll put a link to the playbook at fedgovtoday.com, but so people can see the examples for themselves. But this is something that I'm sure as more agencies learn that it's working,
yes,
they're going to want to expand it to a lot more different categories of jobs.
Absolutely. I think the best example is when the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act is when we actually started pushing our pooled hiring. With all of those agencies, 6 or 7 agencies with common vacancies and common positions that they needed to fill, is when we actually started the approach. And getting the word out to many agencies, promoting it in venues like this, promoting it with the Chico Council, with many different venues, helped get the word out, but also looking at the hiring manager satisfaction scores, also looking at the applicant satisfaction scores on USA Jobs, helped to promote the pooled hiring to keep it going. We have so many organizations that are interested in pooled hiring, but just getting the word out that this is something that's worked. The assessments are working, the assessments are skills-based, and their agencies are able to hire people with the skills that they need. So it's a lot of word of mouth, but it's also a lot of promotion and getting the word out.
Another one of the plays that stood out to me was data-driven workforce decisions, and the play is really simple. Use data to make informed workforce decisions.
Yes.
What are agencies doing well now in that area, and what does this play involve to help them do it better?
I think what agencies are doing now, they are fully aware of the data that they have at their fingertips. They're fully aware of the benefits that data can bring. They're also developing dashboards. OPM has also developed dashboards for agencies to use, and it's been extremely helpful for agencies to determine, okay, this is where I am now, this is where I need to be, and helping them determine that future state and using those dashboards has been incredibly helpful.
One of the things that I think is interesting about all of these plays is that you have metrics to consider,
yes,
for agencies, not prescriptive, but here's some things that you can use to determine if this is working well. How will you apply that concept to this playbook as a whole and to the initiative as a whole to determine if you're shaping the workforce of the future the way that you would like it to, Kim?
I think from the whole of government standpoint, using our Federal Employee Viewpoint Survey data will actually help us determine what impact are we having across government. Agencies will be able to use their current data to make their internal decisions, but from an OPM standpoint and a government-wide standpoint, using FEVs and the individual questions to kind of hone in on, those areas that are impacted by, that are listed in the playbook, will help us, put a magnifying glass on where changes have been happening and where changes need to be made.
What of the Fed's data in particular, where would I go if I want to see how I think from the outside agencies are doing looking at the Feds, and what data do the individual agencies have? I imagine it varies from agency to agency.
Well, agencies have their specific data on how their employees responded to their survey. On OPM's website, we actually have the government-wide data, and we'll be able to drill down by question, by area, to be able to get that data.
Kim, it's great to have you on the program. Thanks very much for your time today.
Thank you.
You can read more about the playbook, find a link to it, and the Workforce of the Future initiative on today's show page at fedgovtoday.com. Up next, the AI transformation ahead for agency operations. FedGov Today with Francis Rose continues in a moment. The new episode of Innovation in Government, presented by Carasoft, recorded on location at West 24 in San Diego, is available on demand. Watch and listen to leaders from the Navy, Coast Guard, Space Command, and the Marine Corps explain how artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, and network modernization are revolutionizing defense strategies and operations. You'll learn more about innovations transforming government and military capabilities. For more information and to watch on demand, visit innovationingov.com. See a vision of the future of national defense. Welcome back. The Department of Defense is reviewing results from its Data and AI Symposium several weeks ago. The symposium looked at a lot of different aspects of AI use for the department, including large language models and workforce issues. Dave Wennergren's Chief Executive Officer at ACT-IAC. He's former Chief Information Officer of the Navy, former Deputy CIO of DoD, and former Assistant Deputy Chief Management Officer at the Pentagon. Dave, welcome. Thanks for coming on the program. DoD's demonstrating with the symposium that they're starting to think about the implications of the technology and not just the technology itself. What are you seeing agencies that are trying to do that, thinking about, talking about, when they're thinking about how does AI change the way we do business, not just the technology itself?
It's great to be here with you, and it's a really important topic to be talking about because, you know, whether it's the simple stuff like robotic process automation all the way up to generative AI and large language models, across government we're starting to see people are actually using this technology to try to take routinized tasks and let machines do them so that the finite number of government employees that we have can actually focus on things that have to be done by government. And there's a lot to be done because, you know, there's still far too many labor intensive, I'll say paper-based, maybe not so much, but not yet digital processes in government. And this is a huge moment of opportunity to look at how can you use these technologies to help improve the speed of decision making, do more evidence-based policy, help advance research agendas, help improve customer experience. So there's just a lot of enthusiasm we see across both the civilian and defense side of the government.
So where that really came into focus in my mind was at your Digital Transformation Summit not too long ago. Was out there, had some folks on the FedGov Today podcast to talk about the work that they were doing. And AI is at the root of a lot of those transformations, but for the reasons that you're talking about, and thankfully not folks just saying, well, we should get some AI because it's cool and everybody's doing it, right?
And that's so important because what often happens when you have a new technology like this, just like when digital services became a thing, we tend to work at the margins. And it's very simple to say, well, we're going to improve a website marginally or take some non-core process and do something with it. But that isn't what turns the tide. You need to do something that's going to actually move the agenda forward, and that's why it's so important to focus on what are the core missions of the agency and how can you use these technologies to reduce friction, improve access, you know, speed up processes. And so once you start taking on bigger programs and bigger initiatives, that's when you're going to win the hearts and minds of everybody because there's an enthusiasm to use these tools that people are taking up even in their personal life. And if we can help focus on outcomes for the mission of the agency, then we'll make progress at the agencies too.
So there's two words then that it sounds to me like should be at the core of what agencies should be thinking about along those lines, and those two words are business processes, right?
Yes.
Not the technology and not the way that those processes are executed, but the steps that they ask a citizen or an employee or someone else to take to achieve whatever the outcome is they're supposed to deliver. Am I on the right track?
You're on the right track. It's, you know, it's an old story, but it's still an important story that there's a lot of process improvement work that can be done. And sure, there are challenges here, but they're not challenges that we can't overcome. I mean, you know, tech modernization, you know, there's a direct correlation between the progress that you've made on your IT modernization and the ability to adopt these new technologies. You've got to have a workforce that's ready and trained to use these new technologies. And oh, by the way, remember that the workforce has to include your industry partners because there's not enough skill just within government to do all this work on their own. And are you ready for cultural change? Can you embrace that? And then probably most important for the conversation is, you know, are you thinking about the ethical adoption of AI?
You make an interesting argument before we went on the air about a way that artificial intelligence can help the Federal Information Technology Acquisition Reform Act scorecard. Make that for folks that are watching on TV now because I think it's really fascinating.
Yes.
What's the connection between AI and the FITARA scorecard?
So number one, as you said, the FITARA and its related scorecard is really good. that we've done that, right? The fact that things that you measure are the things you focus your time and attention on. The fact that Congress is checking in on somewhat esoteric things like IT governance and tech modernization is really good. But the scorecard's been around for a while now, and if you looked at the most recent iteration that came out last month, the changes to it are marginal so far. And the pace of technology has changed dramatically. And it's a time to double down on, can we improve and enhance the FITARA scorecard to keep it relevant? And should we be looking at things like, do you have a strong technology modernization plan? Are your cybersecurity measures the kinds of things that are focusing on new cyber tools like zero trust? Do you have an emphasis on customer experience? Are you monitoring and accelerating the implementation of AI and dealing with things like CIO authorities? We can make some adjustments to that scorecard that would, again, help to drive the implementation.
All right, 30 seconds. Who has to do what in order to make that happen? Is it just up to Congress and GAO to change the scorecard, or is there something somebody else can or should do?
Well, we've got a group of industry experts, former IT leaders that have offered some great recommendations. I think, yes, congressional staffs, Congress, OMB, federal agencies are already partners trying out some of these new measures. So takes a village. We could do this together.
All right, I have a message to everybody in the GovCon community that thinks that you and I are the same person because they think we look alike. This is proof that we're not the same person, Dave. It's great to see you as always, my friend.
Great to be here with you, Francis.
You can read more about how AI is changing government operations on today's show page at fedgovtoday.com. Up next, the Navy's data future, according to CIO Jane Rathbun. FedGov Today with Francis Rose continues in a moment. The new episode of Innovation in Government, presented by Carasoft, recorded on location at West 24 in San Diego, is available on demand. Watch and listen to leaders from the Navy, Coast Guard, Space Command, and the Marine Corps explain how artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, and network modernization are revolutionizing defense strategies and operations. You'll learn more about innovations transforming government and military capabilities. For more information and to watch on demand, visit innovationingov.com. See a vision of the future of national defense. Welcome back. You heard Dave Wennergren talk about the importance of data a few minutes ago. One of the Navy's technology goals is to make that data easier to use and move around. Jane Rathbun is Chief Information Officer of the Navy at West 2024 recently. I asked her how she's getting the message about data out to her department.
Yesterday we had our Don IT West as a precursor to the FCO West, and our focus was on data maneuverability. And so, that can take that can be defined many ways, and that's really kind of what yesterday was about. It was a thought process on what that really means and where we're at in making data maneuverability a thing, and what where do we have to go and what we have to do. We focused on a couple of areas. We focused on we took a strategic, operational, tactical approach, how we want to execute in that space, and so we first focused on, from the Under Secretary's perspective, what was important to him from a data maneuverability perspective. We talk about information being combat power, and really the information domain, those who can win in that domain are going to have the decisive advantage. And we firmly believe that. And so everything that we're trying to do is focused on making that a reality. And so what we've discovered is that in our information superiority vision, where we're doing modernize, innovate, and defend, that we have made great strides in improving our IT infrastructure and defending that IT infrastructure over the last 3 years. And that where we need to be more focused is on the data piece of all of that. We called data and workforce an enabler before. What I see needing to happen, and where I'm headed with what I'd call the Information Security Vision 2.0, is moving from modernize, innovate, and defend to optimize, secure, and decide. And why am I doing that? Because I think we really need to focus on making data a key pivotal focus of how we make our data ready, transparent, tagged, usable, how we maneuver that data, how we take advantage of what's happening in AI and machine learning, and what data needs to look like to be able to take full advantage of that. That would be the data side of data maneuverability. Mm-hmm. The infrastructure, the optimize in our future state, is really about modernize and innovate but creating redundant paths, secure paths for our data. Our golden rule will stay the same, that securely move data from anywhere to anywhere so that we can decide and act on that data. Again, focused on what that looks like for the warfighter. Last summer, I went to the large-scale exercise on their executive day, and I got to see a lot of great things in action happening. I talked to a lot of folks. At the end, I talked to Admiral Kilby and General Kavanaugh about their concerns, their issues with this exercise. A lot of it had to do with integration and interoperability. I also asked the floor what they were thinking and asked what was frustrating or what's a gap area for them. And they talked about integration of data. And so how do we change the calculus and not make data integration something that the warfighter has to do, but deliver them capabilities that they can use at the tactical edge that are really decision-worthy data, and not data that they have to fuse together to help create decision advantage for their leaders.
Yeah.
And thinking about that, you have to walk it back and figure out, what does that ecosystem need to look like? Information ecosystem that allows us to maneuver data. How do we design an ecosystem that will let us use machine learning and AI? And then how do we secure that, whether the data is at the tactical edge or back what I would say is the mothership?
Yeah.
So those were all kind of the key conversations yesterday. We talked about AI. We talked about maneuverability from an information ecosystem perspective. We talked about what the PEOs, we brought in PEO C4I, PEO Digital, PEO MLB, the Manpower Logistics and Business Systems folks, and PEO IWS, the Weapon Systems folks, all of them needing data for targeting all the way into making financial decisions. And what are they doing to improve data interoperability? What are they doing to improve data maneuverability? Where are their challenges? So really great thinking going on. And we will use that to further evolve our ISV 2.0 that we plan on rolling out at FCA East.
Excellent. You talked about what data needs to look like. What does data need to look like? And I imagine part of the answer is it depends, but on what does it depend if that's the case?
So I think what data needs to look like, data needs to be available and usable, right? And so data is going to take all forms, but data needs to be understood. The provenance needs to be understood. The access to that data needs to be understood. So tagging is really important. That then allows us to rethink how we store and how we move, right? So the more we can do at the data layer to manage our data, the better off we're going to be to being agile and maneuverable. I'll use the mission partner environment, right? I've got a secret rail environment. That's where I'm going to work with my mission partners. Well, data is going to come from all sources, CUI, secret, top secret even, intel data. How do I get that data into a mission partner environment where I can merge and consume all of those levels of classification in a single place? I can do that today pretty manually. Where we want to be in the future is be able to automate the merging of that data, the masking of the provenance of that data, so that it is highly consumable for that mission partner and for our operations. Data needs to be decision worthy. How can we make sure that it's trusted? How can we make sure that at the tactical edge, the data that we're providing has already gone through some analytic rigor and is ready, whether it's trained models from an AI perspective and is ready to consume new data to give those real-time insights to the warfighter. Creating that ecosystem, building the pieces of that ecosystem is really what we need to do. And again, focus on managing data, having people that can manage data.
A lot of discussion here about data at the edge. What does that mean to you as you're thinking about all of the issues that you've described in this conversation so far, Jim?
Yeah. So it's not all data at the edge, for sure, right? I don't think we want to build systems that require us to have massive amounts of data. We still potentially have bandwidth or disconnected operations where we're not going to be able to get more data to the edge. To me, what it looks like is, first of all, cloud, agile cloud, tactical edge cloud, and redundant pathways to get our data to that cloud. But the data I'm putting in that cloud, again, it's not everything. It is trained. It has looked at everything and it is now able to accept new data and make further insights. So that really is what tactical edge data management and data agility looks like.
Is there a role for automation in that, either now or at some point in the future?
I think there is now and in the future. I think one of the things, and we're talking to our industry partners about that, is how do we build this ecosystem, this reference architecture that takes into account cloud, redundant paths through commercial SATCOM, et cetera, and getting to where it needs to get. And then what is it that the warfighter needs to make decisions? And that's going to evolve and change. And that will be a partnership, a conversation with them about what they need, what they think they need. How do we make sure that we can pivot quickly when something happens so that we can get a new set of data to them? So I think automation has to be our friend in that conversation.
Where do you see that dialogue now about what data the warfighter needs at the edge, and where do you see that evolution taking that discussion in a year or 2 years or 5 years, Jane?
So I think it's multi-pronged, lots of people involved. For us, it's thinking about securely move information from anywhere to anywhere, leveraging the great commercial technology we have to make that seamless flow, seamless as possible. I think it looks like changing the calculus of how we think about networks today. In particular, commercial technology, I think, is capable of being on a ship. We are testing out the idea of a hyperconverged infrastructure stack, cloud stack, on a ship to enable things that we do ashore to be afloat, i.e. our flank speed or Office 365. I think that's the first step, is like, what can we deliver that we were doing on the enterprise or shore side to the ship that exponentially improves collaboration, communication, chat, and then where can we go from there? What does our future Canes need to do? What could this HCI stack do for us that Canes is doing today? And so I think those conversations are ready, being had. We will be involved in that piece, how to get the data there. The what data needs to be there, I think that is the warfighter's role, and then pairing them with savvy, smart people who can identify how an AI ecosystem would support that need. We're doing a lot of that in Overmatch with battle management aids, for example.
Jane, it's always great to talk to you. Thanks for your time today.
Great talking to you. Thanks.
You can read more about the Navy's technology future on today's show page at fedgovtoday.com. FedGov Today continues in a moment. The new episode of Innovation in Government, presented by Carasoft, recorded on location at West 24 in San Diego, is available on demand. Watch and listen to leaders from the Navy, Coast Guard, Space Command, and the Marine Corps explain how artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, and network modernization are revolutionizing defense strategies and operations. You'll learn more about innovations transforming government and military capabilities. For more information and to watch on demand, visit innovationingov.com. See a vision of the future of national defense. Welcome back. In today's event spotlight, FedGov Today is going on the road, and you can be there as the show unfolds live. Booz Allen's DE-24, Enabling Data for Mission Outcomes, is coming next Monday, March 18th. Agency leaders will tell you how they're using data to deliver on their missions, and you can watch us record a brand new episode of FedGov Today. It's happening at the Helix in downtown D.C. You can learn more about the event and the Helix and register for DE-24 at fedgovtoday.com/events. FedGov Today TV returns next Sunday morning at 10:30. I'm Francis Rose. I'll see you then. Thanks very much for watching. Have a great week.